What's up, friends, and welcome back to the show. Today in the studio, I sat across from Gina Scafoglio. She's a bodybuilder, or soon to not be a bodybuilder, because she is changing and growing and learning what she really wants in life. And if this phase of her life is no longer serving her, what comes next is healing, helping other people heal, regulate their nervous system, set healthy boundaries, really figure out who they are and what they want in life. We talk about all kinds of stuff like body image issues, the pressure of social media, modern feminism, how to build a healthy relationship, how to recognize that you might have a voice in your head, but you are not the voice in your head, and how much freedom comes with that, her healing from trauma of an abusive relationship, strength, resilience, training, and so much more. What a fun conversation. Let's get into it with Gina. Gina, you are the first bodybuilder I've had on the show, but you're a kind of like a unicorn of a bodybuilder. There's not too many bodybuilders that also talk feminine energy and spirituality and consciousness. Mm-hmm. Like, how'd you stumble into all this stuff?
Oh man, I stumbled into it through hardship and through relationships ending, through my own challenges. But it's funny, I don't even identify as a bodybuilder anymore. Mm-hmm. It's something that I've really been sitting with. Do I want to do another show? Do I want to keep competing? Or does it no longer align with me because of my new values?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I figured that might be the case. Mm-hmm. It's one of my questions on my little outline today is just how is that relationship with the sport of bodybuilding, but also with your own body, like changing over time? Because I imagine the amount of discipline that it takes to get stage ready, but also like motivations for why you got into it. And like you said, it seems like it was a really something that saved you in many ways and gave you a sense of control over things. But as you evolve, like you change, and when you change, the things you want change, and it throws you into a little bit of an existential crisis. Like, right, should I still be doing this? So yeah, talk to me a little bit that process as you're working through it in real time. Like, what's coming up? What do you think?
Yeah, bodybuilding definitely was a huge stepping stone in my life, something that gave me purpose, a sense of identity and who I was before I awakened to my higher self. So when I was still unconscious, I didn't know who I was, and I thought that I would find things or accomplishments or experiences that would define me and give me a purpose and a sense of self. Mm-hmm. And bodybuilding was, despite the unhealthy small components of it, or maybe the last bits of prep can be very unhealthy, or going to an extreme in anything can be unhealthy. Right. But it was mentally and physically much healthier than where I was before. So that's where it was a stepping stone for me, something that I evolved into and then through. And it's almost something that I'm looking at as a past part of myself now. Mm-hmm.
Where were you before? You said it was healthier than that version. What was the before phase?
Before was not loving myself, not having trust within myself, not having a sense of purpose or who I was. And before bodybuilding, I had a unique relationship with food. Maybe not unique to others, but for maybe the grand scheme of things. But food was something, it was safety, and it was how I regulated my emotions and my nervous system unconsciously. And I really didn't understand nutrition prior to bodybuilding. I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed in the footsteps of my mother and other family and what the media would preach, the magazines, the cabbage soup diet, the military diet, like all the crazy dieting.
Yum.
Right. Yeah. The cabbage soup one was fun. I did that many times with, throughout even high school. I started that whole thing in high school or maybe even younger. So bodybuilding was, I had always been competitive. That was something that I was always drawn to growing up. Something that I loved was competing in anything. It could be the job that I was performing, could be in school. I wanted to be a good student. I wanted to be the best at everything. And then when school sports ended in high school, I was like, where do I channel this energy? Where do I channel this competitiveness or just the desire to be an athlete I always had that desire despite having a poor nutrition with food. I loved moving my body from a very young age. And so bodybuilding I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go lift weights. This is free. This is, I guess, the next thing that I do. And then I started dating a previous partner, and he was a bodybuilder. And I went to one of his shows. I watched the whole process, him go through it. It was very intriguing, and I took an interest in it. And then when I went to one of his shows, I saw all of the girls on stage. And in my mind, I thought that they would all look like pros. And when I got there, I was like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what began my bodybuilding career.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think about like the culmination of bodybuilding, like you said, almost, and I've never done it, so I'm kind of pontificating a little bit, but almost the moment you get on stage is almost the moment where you're the most depleted, the most weak. It's after probably months of really rigorous dieting and cutting down and getting to just like single digit body fat levels. And it really is a testament of will. And I think as much as that little slice of it can be very unhealthy, like you said, but anything taken to its extremes can be very unhealthy. You do learn an awful lot about like self-control and discipline, and even just the process of how to sculpt your body, and maybe say like, oh, my shoulders need developing, and learning the body and learning the nutrition and learning the steps and learning all these different things. But the culmination of it essentially is the judgment of your body, right? That's it. Like at the end of the day, you're standing on a stage in your undies, being judged by strangers. And to be the best at it, you've got to be the best body on the stage. That is really interesting, in particular for a woman, I feel like, because so much of that, there's so much pressure about like body image and stuff like that, right? What's been your journey with your own body image and how you see just that whole cultural thing now with the social media pressure, and how do you want to have a body that you feel good about but not like hand over all of your worth to the meat suit?
It's so hard to explain. It's so, you have to put words into the feeling and the process. But what was interesting, or an interesting concept, is what you look like on stage is not how you look when you're just standing like normal. And so there's things about my body that I didn't love going, and that's why a lot of bodybuilders get into bodybuilding, is they're not happy with the way they look. And so they learn, oh, I have the power to change. I have the power to change these things, grow something, make something smaller, tighten up in these certain areas. And there were certain insecurities I had, such as having smaller hips, more narrow hips, because since growing up, we had, I don't know, J-Lo and Beyonce, and we had like, and then Nicki Minaj, and then there's Cardi, like all of these big celebrities. And we started, I think in the 90s, maybe we were glamorizing more of that skinny look, just lean. And then I think over time it transitioned into having big hips and big booty and lots of curves. And I just naturally didn't have that. And so that was an insecurity of mine. And when you're posed on stage, you're completely contorting your body. And for the bikini division, especially, you're standing almost completely sideways with your lower body. And then you twist and your whole upper body is facing the front. And so even if you have a naturally wider waist or naturally more narrow hips, or you don't have that hourglass shape, through posing and through also just developing your physique, you can create the illusion that you have this hourglass figure. And so what was interesting for me is it gave me a sense of confidence of, oh, I love my body. I love that I can look this way, but it didn't always translate off stage. You go back to just standing straight, looking in the mirror, and I was like, yeah, I'm still not happy. But for some reason, I never really took on much of the body dysmorphia. A lot of competitors take that on, and they get so used to seeing their body in a very lean, particular way. And I did enjoy being leaner, and it was more fun, but I never, throughout my entire career, never fluctuated too much. I always stayed a very healthy body fat, even in my off season. So I didn't have this giant contrast where other competitors might gain and lose 50 pounds. So I would I would maybe do 10 to 15 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a bit more reasonable. Yeah. It's super interesting because I've experienced it in my own way, in a different way, but in my own way, like extreme dieting for competitions. I used to do MMA and I would compete at 155-pound weight class, and that meant getting extremely lean, not for the sake of just for the sake of making weight, which was actually in hindsight so stupid, because I wasn't then going to stand on a stage. I was going to go in a cage with another human who's trying to knock your head off after you've dehydrated. It's the dumbest thing ever. But I would have these crazy rebounds, like, and I would gain 40, 50 pounds. And I developed a very unhealthy relationship to food, because it felt like such extreme restriction that when there was no fight on the calendar, it was like full send. Like, and it was kind of gross, honestly. And even to this day, and I know where it comes, I'm able to track where, and I would say I definitely have a mild case of body dysmorphia. I'm able to own that, and I think I know where it came from, and I've got a handle on it now. But the voice still like rings sometimes, that like, just it, like you said, the way you look on stage when you're under the down lighting and you're posing, and then the difference that you look without a pump, without special lighting, on just where you're not flexing or doing anything, you're like, ooh, you kind of look gross. And then you catch yourself saying that, you don't look gross. It's just like, such little things play into the, you know, the perception of how you look and therefore how you feel. And it can just be a really slippery slope. And I think, you know, the men do deal with it too. They do. And in this rising culture of social media, where like so many people use their bodies to sell their ideas, sell their programs, sell their coaches, an extra layer of validation of like, well, if I look hot and I'm skinny and I'm jacked, then more people will listen to me, which unfortunately is probably true, by the way. Yeah. It's true. I just, yeah, it was just very interesting to talk to you about that, because that's essentially the pinnacle of it. Bodybuilding is I mean, you are getting judged on your body. That's literally the sport. So it's fascinating.
There's another mechanism of the ego, and it's the opposite of beating yourself up or the body dysmorphia, and it's actually more of the vanity. And I would fall into more of the vanity. And I think in social situations or having a conversation with another individual, there is a level of humility. But when I would look in the mirror at home and I'm just posing by myself, I'm like, you look good.
Yeah.
And so there was more so that aspect throughout my bodybuilding career than anything else. I've never really been one to beat myself up when I look in the mirror, unless what I'm looking at is a representation of my choices. Yeah. And so if I'm, let's say, really bloated, even now, there's a thought, you hear the voice that's like, why is your stomach so big? Or like, that doesn't look good. And then I can actually catch that voice. I can recognize it's not me, and be like, why am I actually, what is this disalignment or unalignment coming from? Misalignment, that's the best word. And it's from not honoring myself through my food choices, or not honoring myself in some way or another that results in the bloating.
Well said. We were saying before we hit record about how pivotal that thing that you just said was, which is to recognize that the voice in your head that's saying the mean things isn't automatically you, that it's either coming from a story or a perception. And I was saying that was my big, just earth-shattering moment when I realized the voice in your head, you are not the voice in your head, you are the one that hears it. And I think that happened around 26 or 7 for me, and nothing's been the same since. Where did that happen for you? Because it's not something that most people come into the world with. Actually, maybe they do, and then it gets programmed out of us, and then we've got to remember at some point. But where did the kind of like more awareness, awakening, spiritual side of you join into the fray of you know, regular humaning, bodybuilding?
I started to develop a sense of self very young, and I think that might have resulted from being an only child, solitude. But I also had certain experiences as a child that really inhibited me from sleeping very well. And so I would stay up at night for hours without being able to sleep. And so I think I became aware of the voice in my head at a very young age. I just wasn't aware that it wasn't me. And then I read The Power of Now when I was 25, I believe. And Eckhart Tolle that's one of the first things of the book is, you have a mind, but you're not the mind. You have a brain, but you're not the brain. And he his words really brought me online. It was the beginning of my spiritual awakening, reading The Power of Now. And anytime that I find myself starting to suffer again from the mind, experiencing, not just experiencing negative thoughts and emotions, but getting lost in them, grabbing them, identifying with them, going down the rabbit hole, I will return to that book, and it will bring me back online.
Yeah, it's so powerful. You're right, and it's not the absence of negative thoughts or stories. It's the combining with them that's the problem. And I think that's what these teachers, awakenings tools, even like whatever you do actually when you recognize that, to get back to the now, whether it's just one breath or a mantra or something, this is what provides so much freedom, because we all have a brain, but we are not that thing. That thing, the brain, is a worry machine. It's a fear factory. It's a prediction and protection thing, and it's not even a bad guy or gal. It's trying to keep you safe, and it's trying to predict the future, which it can't do. So it uses models of the past. The models of the past then define the future. Now you're just stuck in a clusterfuck of stories, and most people think that they are that voice. They are those stories. They combine with it, and that's the same bad trip for most people, until boom, oh, maybe I'm not that voice in my head. Now begins the practice, though, of not so consistently combining with it and identifying with insert whatever limiting belief it is. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable, yada, yada, yada. Today, as you still slip into that, as I'm sure you do, you're still a human. What do you use to come back to the now? What practices have been most powerful for you?
Well, first is just a reframe or an understanding or awareness around what I'm experiencing and when it's me versus not me. And I've used different tools and listened to different gurus, so to speak, that have provided me information to be able to navigate those moments. So when a thought comes in and that thought doesn't feel good, or it's a negative thought, if it's rooted in fear, I know that's not me. There's really only two states of being or emotions, and that's love and fear. And everything else is an extension of that. And so I ask myself, is this thought rooted in love or fear? And if it's fear, oh, there's my ego. There's the wounded inner child, the shadow, whatever we want to call it. And if it's something that brings me joy and excitement and love and gratitude, I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm in alignment with my higher self. And throughout the years, I've learned that a lot of it's just remembering, because you can learn something and conceptualize it, but how do we embody it? That's and right. How do we remember in the moments that it matters the most? And so I've created systems throughout my entire day that remind me who I really am. So that's my morning routine. I think a lot of people are like, oh, morning routines are bullshit. You know, you don't have to spin around in your head for 30 minutes to have a good day. And to me, it's more so, what is the intention behind it? Why are we doing a morning routine? And for me, the first thing that I want to do when I wake up is to become conscious, become aware of self, so that I'm not living my life identifying as the ego self, as someone that I'm not really, and to live life with more love and more loving awareness. And so I have my morning routine. I read The Power of Now, or I'll listen to audiobooks like Conversations with God. And I journal, and I do breathwork and meditation. And I have these practices, not just in my morning, but they're sprinkled and mixed in throughout my day. Or even just a moment right before we started the podcast, I felt a little bit of energy in my body. And before I wanted to label it anxiety or worry or fear or what have you, I'm like, oh no, it's just energy. How can I alchemize this energy and not grab any story or program that comes with the energy? And that's through the breath. So we did a little bit of breath work before we started.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't know how true this is, but again, not overly concerned with what's true and what's useful, because useful is good. But there's this cliche that goes around that fear or anxiety is excitement without breath. And that's what you were able to do in real time just before we hit go, was alchemize something that felt like you could label it as fear or anxiety, and it just didn't have the breath, so it felt more constricted. And then you applied the breath to it, and you was like, oh, I'm just excited right now. We're just going to do something new, and it's foreign, and that's completely okay. And to your point about having micro reminders, whether it's a morning routine, and that was so pivotal and still is for me, but it's just morphed over the years. I spent 3 years where I never missed a morning of meditation. It was profound. And now I've taken a slightly different practice of taking it off the cushion, so to speak, but it's still the same thing that you're saying. It's a chance to remember. It's a chance to tap in. It's not a chance to stay asleep even though I've woken up. It's to wake up after the waking up, you know, like my alarm went off. Now wake up. And to your point, if your life doesn't show it, you don't really know it. And we can have, you know, we can read a book like The Power of Now and say, oh yeah, I get that. Life exists in the now. It's only now. Come back to the now. But you convince yourself that you know something, but then your life doesn't show it. So what you've got really is just like a mental model. You've not like fully let it integrate or land or embodied it. Yeah. And I think that's where the practice that you're describing really comes in. Just to use a bodybuilding analogy, it's reps. It's a game of reps, right? It's a game of reps and remembering it's progressive overload of the soul. And you've just got to keep doing it day after day after day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. I have a fun thing that I've done in the past, and it was I kept snoozing my alarm. And you mentioned just now, it's like waking up after you wake up. So what's funny is a lot of people don't fully understand what we're talking about until you say the awakening. And then they're like, oh, I think I kind of know what you mean. But in the morning I was snoozing my alarm, and I was like, why am I snoozing my alarm? Why am I falling unconscious to these certain programs or habits or behaviors that don't serve me? And I was like, oh, well, I'm just not. The first thing you do is you wake up in the morning and you're not actually awake. And so I created a system, and I literally put a sticky note on my phone in the morning. So when I had typed it out on my phone and my alarm name, I never read it. So I put a physical sticky note, and it literally said, wake up, bitch. And it wasn't like wake up physically. It was like,
yes,
spiritually wake up.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would see the note, I would giggle, that would make me laugh, and it would literally bring me online. And I wouldn't snooze and be like, okay, it's time to do the day. And it would just remind me who I am.
Awesome. I like that it's playful too. You know, like this whole self-development scene can feel really serious sometimes. So heavy. We're alchemizing emotions. We're working through traumas, and it is heavy biz. It is. And to borrow the waking up term from one of my favorites, Anthony DeMello, he says that the chances of you waking up in this lifetime are directly proportional to the amount of truth you can take without turning away. And it's so true, and it's so powerful, because I think a lot of the reason we want to stay asleep is we don't want to face the uncomfortable truths. So like with that on the table, yeah, that's heavy, because we might have to think about the hard shit that we went through and how it still informs our life now. But you have to approach this with a certain amount of lightness. You have to have the wake up bitch sticky note on your phone. Yeah, you have to laugh sometimes, because this is serious business, but we can hold it lightly in our hands, you know, with our tools. We need to, because if we get too serious, it just sucks the fun out of it.
I had that in my mantras and my affirmations. I really ask myself before I do a breathwork and meditation session, what do I want to call in? What do I want to release? And do I have a question? And oftentimes I would find that the beginning of my awakening, even in the recent couple of years, I would find this heaviness of and judgment of self, which is essentially the ego coming in through the back door. You have an awareness that the ego is present, and then you start getting frustrated with yourself that you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And so it can become heavy or frustrating or overwhelming or daunting. And I just wanted to continue calling in more playfulness, more lightness, more playfulness. And that's really allowed me to approach things with love and not fall into this overwhelmed, fuck it, like I don't want to deal with it right now. If it's fun and playful, you want to do it.
That's right.
Yeah, the work becomes way more enjoyable.
Yeah. And this isn't, I hope people get what you're saying, because it's not this whole spiritual bypass thing of like positive vibes only. You know, it's not that. Like, again, it is the real work. But I think that there is a way in which you can alchemize this work. Firstly, you should be excited by the call of who you can become if you do the requisite digging into the work. And at moments that can feel like the dark night of the soul. In a plant medicine ceremony, that's that moment of like, oh shit, this is getting really scary. And you can try to cling on and have the quote unquote bad trip, or you can choose to surrender. And on the other side of that is the bliss. It's the orgasm. It's the, oh God, it's the ha ha ha, this is fucking crazy. What are we doing? It's all of that. And it's all on the table. Like, it's heads and tails of the same coin. You can't have the bliss without the shit, you know. You can't have love without hate, no up without down, no death without life. So you have to entertain it all, and sometimes that all can be like, oh, scary. So yeah, you just gotta sometimes tiptoe your way in, or sometimes, rip the Band-Aid off. Sometimes life breaks you so you can break through, I know you've got some history with going through really difficult things too. And I am curious how navigating through like difficult relationships and circumstances also was like the medicine you needed, the fuel that you needed to spur on the growth.
Yeah, through suffering can come awakening. And I don't think we should choose to suffer.
No.
There's no such thing as conscious suffering. It's all unconscious. But you can also have gratitude for the contrast. There's so much beauty in contrast. Like you said, there's no light without darkness. You don't know the full spectrum of happiness and joy and gratitude if you've also never experienced the opposite. And it was through really challenging relationships that I started feeling the call to look deeper and to start facing the harder truths. They were really mirroring me in real time. But I can tell you how my awakening, part of it started. I was in a really, really toxic relationship that became physically abusive at the very end. And it, when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, I think I just was really convincing myself like, oh, I think everyone fights, everyone goes through this. You kind of convince yourself that what you're experiencing isn't so bad. And I remember when it ended very abruptly and it was very dramatically. And I finally, I finally felt the calling to get help. I was like, finally, okay, I'm done feeling this low. I'm done feeling the way that I feel. And I didn't have any money at the time, but I was at Texas Tech University. And with your college tuition, you get 10 therapy sessions. Oh. And so I go to this student therapist. Right. And I think they were maybe grad students, didn't seem to have too much training yet, because when I laid out, remember the first session, I laid out all of my stuff. I was like, this is the position I'm in. This is what I'm experiencing. This is the deal with my parents. This is the deal with my now ex-partner. And the look in his face was fear. Yeah. He didn't know how to deal with it.
Like, oh shit, that's a lot.
Yeah. And wow. I'm like, if he doesn't know how to help me, like, what am I going to do? And I remember leaving that first session being really frustrated. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give it another try. I'm going to give it another shot. And I think I was 20 years old at the time, for context. And so I go back to another session, and I was like, maybe the first one was just him getting to know me, like an intake. So that I go to the second session, similar experience where I didn't really know what to say, didn't know what to ask, other than the typical, how do you feel about that? And I was like, wait, are you serious? Are we in a movie right now? And I left. In the third session, I was like, okay, really pissed off. And I'm walking home and I'm like, why can't he help me? Why can nobody help me? Why can nobody help me? And I just kept saying it over and over in my head. And then I caught it. And I was like, nobody can help me. Only I can help me. Yeah. And that was the beginning of recognizing I had been in this victim mentality like my whole life. I was waiting for someone to save me. And in that moment, it was empowering, because I was like, oh, I have to do something other than expecting someone to fix it for me.
So powerful. Yeah, it's that idea, the reality, if you will, of no one is coming to save you is simultaneously like, oh shit, but also like, oh, well, if it's on me and I control me, then if you have the right constitution and hopefully like just the perfect combination of things to take that with a bit of gusto and say, okay, well, let's heal me, let's help myself. And it's very hard. It's very hard because basically we're thrust into this life through parents that can sometimes be unconscious themselves, and we are literally dependent on them. We are, as a baby, for many, many years of our youth evolution, we are saying, you better save me, you better feed me, you better protect me. Because if you don't, I'm dead. Evolutionarily speaking, I can't be left. And then there's a certain point where you become more of a sovereign human, where you could survive in the wild, but you still have that programming of why is nobody helping me? Why am I abandoned right now? Come and save me. Until whatever happens where that switches, that flip switches, switch flips, whatever. And then it's like, wow, okay. And there's something I can do here. So you have that realization. How do you save yourself?
I turned to books in that moment, and it was more of a slow journey because I had just experienced so much emotional and physical trauma. I wasn't ready to go deep into it, but I just started reading books, and that's what I could afford. I couldn't afford an actual mentor at the time.
Yeah.
Couldn't go to a therapist outside of what was free for within my tuition. And so I started reading, and I knew journaling was good for you. So I guess I'm just going to start journaling. So that became a behavior that I would go to.
That's awesome.
And I started exercising, and taking it seriously. I exercised before, but I think I put more focus into that. And I also finally was like, I had been training for years, but my body didn't physically represent that training because my relationship with food and just the eating habits that I had. And I was like, I think it's time for me to like start learning about this. Everyone at the gym kept saying, hey, do you track your macros? You track your macros. And that was the time where it had just become a more popularized thing. I think MyFitnessPal had just come out. And so I resisted it up until that point. And the point where I realized, I'm the only one that can save myself. I have the power. And I started using the resources that were at my disposal instead of resisting and being like, that's not for me. That's not for me. Finally, I was like, look, if what I'm doing is not working, I have to do something different. Yeah,
that's cool. I do find it very interesting too that you naturally gravitated, and again, like you said, you had a more intuitive sense with you from being younger, like to a 20-year-old that journals is quite rare, like these are things that most people find a lot later in life. So it is cool that your intuition pushed you to some great books and some journaling. But I'm very interested at how that was like also a catalyst for training in the weight room and taking that more seriously, because there has always been this sense that, and I've done it for a long time now, where it does give you that sense of like exerting your will over the world. Like it's very simple. And some people who don't get it, I just don't think they get it. They're just like, well, mostly it's looked at as being a bro exercise, and like, you're not a bro, but you get it. It's like there's some peace that comes from that. The just getting under the barbell and forgetting the world for a minute and realizing that effort is determining your outcomes. And the more consistent you are, it's like one of these, things that bleed into the overarching lessons here that you're in control of a lot more. And in some strange way, like picking a inanimate object up of heavy weights and pushing it over your head 12 times for 5 reps teaches you a lot about life,
Yeah, you build resilience, mental fortitude and physical, and you're able to start looking at obstacles in a different way or challenges in a different way, and you start empowering yourself, and that translates to all areas of life.
Yes.
And to be honest, it was a healthy distraction. I think when we're experiencing pain or emotions that can be really uncomfortable, we'll either distract or numb. And at the time, social media wasn't really a thing. You're not scrolling. There's no such thing as Reels or TikTok. So I wouldn't get lost in social media. I wasn't one to sit still. I had a very hard time sitting still until I was in my later 20s. And so I picked a healthy distraction. I didn't want to numb, didn't want to do the drugs and alcohol route, didn't want to do anything that wasn't going to serve me. I was wanting a better life. And that was the clearest path that I saw at the time. Yeah.
How the word trauma, it's a loaded word for a good reason, because trauma is very real. And how do you heal from trauma? You went through something that's obviously quite traumatic. Physical abuse is very real, and it leaves its mark. And you said at that time you wasn't quite ready to dive into the depths of it. You're here on the other side of it. Like, if somebody's got a traumatic past, how do you begin the healing through trauma?
want to preface this by saying I'm not an expert on the topic, but I just, from speaking from my own experience and understanding, the definition of trauma that resonates with me is stored stuck energy in the body. So emotion is energy in motion. We experience emotion, but oftentimes we'll distract or we'll repress it. We'll just push it down, and it can physically, energetically get stuck in the body.
Yeah.
And it's not our experiences that create trauma. It's the perception of our experiences that create the trauma. So two people can be in the same exact car accident, and one person gets out of the car accident and they're like, wow, I'm lucky. That was close. And that's their experience, and they're not traumatized by it. They might experience pain. Maybe they even have a broken arm, right? But there's no trauma. Where the other person could be in the exact same car accident, and they get out and they create the story that I'm not safe. The world is dangerous. We almost died. And all of the emotion that they're experiencing, all of the thoughts and emotions that they're experiencing, they're not able to process it in real time. Maybe they don't have a healthy outlet. Maybe they don't have the understanding or awareness that they need to somehow express it, whether that be through crying or through screaming into a pillow or journaling it out or doing therapy and actually verbally alchemizing, that energy. And so they hold on to that story and that emotion, and it gets essentially stuck in their body. And then moving forward, every time they're in a car, they might experience fear, PTSD. It's like that energy that's leaking out because they haven't fully felt it and alchemized it. So in order to release that trauma, oftentimes we have to feel it again, and maybe not at the capacity or the depths that one would think. It might just be allowing it to resurface so that we can see it through the lens of our higher self, see it through love and understanding and truth. And then you can physically alchemize that energy through expression, like verbally talking it out, through breath work and meditation, through exercise, some kind of movement. There's a lot of wonderful ways to alchemize energy.
Yes, no doubt. Yeah, and I like that you had that distinction about trauma. Gabor Mate says something along a very similar line, and he is an expert, so we can paraphrase him, where he says, like, trauma isn't necessarily what happened to you. It's what happens inside of you as a response to what happened to you. And that's all like the perception and the stories. And this isn't to blame anybody and say, well, you chose a bad story, so now you're stuck with trauma. It's like, it's
unconscious.
It's unconscious. And yeah, like you said, nobody consciously wounds themselves. So this idea of like energy and motion becoming stuck, which creates dis-ease in the body and can manifest as physical disease over a long enough timeline is very fascinating. And Justin Lovato is your husband. He's been on the podcast over a year ago. We'll get him back on at some point. But you had an experience with him, I think maybe even introduced you to breathwork. And breathwork for me was really powerful for that somatic thing. Because like you said, you have to relive the traumatic experience, but from a felt sense of safety. So you don't have to put yourself in the jaws of the lion, so to speak. You do it from this like loving, compassionate witness, the higher self, whatever feels comfortable. And I think one of the safer, more valuable experiences and ways that I've been able to do that is through breathwork. It's very somatic. It's very much like you can release. And I remember the first time I did a transcendental style breathwork, holotropic, whatever you want to call it, psychedelic breathwork, which was sober. You get high in your own supply, to quote the great Wim Hof. Was like, wow, I'm feeling really emotional right now. Whoa, what's happening? Wow, I'm crying. Wow, I'm sobbing. Wow, what is this? And then the realization that this was all of that stuck energy. That like, I don't know why, but I probably could guess why, but for a large part of my life, I couldn't really cry because crying felt like a deep, like sissy boy thing to do. We're men, we don't cry. Like I'd never seen it modeled. I didn't think it was okay. So it was like you said, stuff. And then all of a sudden this practice put me in a place where it's like, hey, it's coming out whether you like it or not, bitch. So buckle up. And I was like, I'm like, oh, and it's like snot's coming and the tears are coming, and it, it sounds kind of like crazy, but it was
it's beautiful healing. Though. I think most of the time when you're experiencing it, you know that it's a release.
You do, it
feels cathartic.
It does, yeah.
It feels
and
relieving.
You can feel it moving your body. You're moving out of your body.
Vibrations, shakes, tremors. Crying is a beautiful way to alchemize energy. You're just an abundance of any emotion can result in crying.
Yeah.
like tears of joy. You get frustrated, you cry. You get
Yeah.
angry, you cry. You
I
get
had a
sad,
teacher
you
say
cry.
to me once that when the tears come, it's when the heart is open.
Mm.
And I was like, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Because even to the point, like you said, tears of frustration and anger,
Mm-hmm.
people, well, that's not your heart open, but kind of is, right? Because it's you allowing yourself to feel the fullness of like why you might be angry is because of maybe you're rubbed up against a boundary in the wrong way, and that's what you love and that's what you want to protect. And it's so raw and real. And just thinking about crying, like we're the only animal that does it, to my knowledge, I think anyway, but we're the only animal that also judges it as good or bad, you know, like that or weakness, when like the tears of love are the same tears of joy and sadness. It's the same structure, it's the same liquid. I'm sure if you looked at it under a microscope, it would probably look slightly different because of the resonance of what's in there, but it's really a beautiful thing. And it shouldn't be something that we feel shame over. I think that if you're going through something right now, and I've done this with people on retreats, one of the most powerful ways to release is to do something called a soul wander, where you go secludedly to nature and you wander without a purpose. You're not trying to go on a hike or get to the top of the mountain the fastest. You're going to find something that helps you transition into the other world, the world of the extraordinary. Like you see, you know, these trees look like they've made a passage, and you mark that disembarkation into the unknown, and you go there to have a conversation with Mother Earth, because the mother holds space like nobody. The true mother, the mother of mothers. And usually if you do that and you go and have a conversation with the earth, like the tears will come, and it's very safe, and because nobody's watching you and you're not being judged. And I know that even some people listening to this right now, like they're getting uncomfortable about that idea. They're like, shut up, hippie. But go try it and tell me that there's not incredibly beautiful and healing and cathartic if you can allow yourself to get to that place. And maybe if you don't want to do that, then there's the breath work and there's the meditation. There's these other things. There's many ways up the mountain, but you've all probably got some tears that you need to get out, I think.
Oh, yeah.
There's some tears in there.
Oh, yeah. And another way you can do it is just by removing all the stimulation. That's what you're doing when you go into nature, is you're disconnecting and removing all the stimulation other than earth, which isn't, to me, a stimulation. That's just connection.
Yeah, exactly. The nervous system feels at home. And
yeah. And I think there's a big difference, too, between allowing thoughts and emotions to pass through you, move through you, and not identify with them. Because oftentimes that can be the scary or unsettling part of healing, as we know that we're going to face these emotions again. And it can be really daunting to hold that if it's heavy. And so one of the best tools that has allowed me to work through so much of what I have is the awareness that I'm not the voice in my head and I'm not the emotions in my body. I have a human vessel and I have a human brain that thinks thoughts, and my human vessel experiences emotions, but that's not who I am. And having that awareness, that zoomed out perspective, gives you a little bit of leverage to not get lost in the sauce. Yeah. So having more awareness around the whole process can make it a little bit more inviting and empowering, of like, okay, now that I know how to navigate these situations, I feel a little bit more confident stepping into the unknown. Yeah.
There's the aphorism, like the only way out is through. And in a similar sense, like you said, you've got to just let this stuff work its way through you. Like it's got to move through. I had a teacher once tell me about this. He was taught by somebody else that in sharing circles and holding spaces, like you need to be the hollow bone. And the hollow bone is sturdy enough to hold that space, but hollow enough to let things move through without getting gummed up, without getting lost in the sauce. And I thought that was a really beautiful reminder for whether you're sharing space with another person or just for yourself. Like, how can you be the hollow bone? Like, yeah, you do need to be strong to do these things. You can't be weak and face these things because you'll be too afraid. You need that courage. You need that strength to say, like, I am strong. And you know you're strong because you're still here. Nothing destroyed you yet. You're still here. So like, even if you've gone through some crazy intense shit, you're strong enough to make it this far. So you're already strong and you can lean on that. Now, how do we work on getting you to the hollow bone place where you can feel the trust and the safety and the knowing that you are not these things, but they do need to move through you. But if you've got too much gunk in there, you can get lost in the sauce, and it can be tough. And you know, not everybody's going to get this right the first time. Like, healing is a lifelong game, and you're going to have to keep coming back. And that's why sometimes, you know, like, yeah, I just talked about an amazing experience I had with breathwork. Sometimes it's really difficult, and I've had a really great plant medicine experience, and I've had a really difficult one, and that's why. And it's probably because I wasn't quite as hollow as I'd been in that state for that reason, or this level of lesson that I needed to learn, or whatever it is. So you just got to keep coming back, and compassion for yourself along the way goes a very healthy dose as well.
Yeah, and one of your questions was about the practices, and that just reminded me that you're almost asking, like, how do you become both? And for me, that's been stillness. The stillness is the same vibrational frequency as love and as of source. And so that's why I think a lot of the best gurus and teachers and masters in history have been meditators.
Yeah.
Is you really remember who you are in stillness. It takes some time, and you probably experience that within your 3 years of meditating every single day. But that's one of the practices that really grounds me and reminds me who I am, and allows me to embody, not just conceptualize with the mind all of these things that we're talking about, but actually embody and experience it.
That's right.
For myself.
Feeling is believing. And that thing that you said there about like stillness being a similar frequency of vibration as love, and what love is also is safety, right? So like that love can hold the space for all of the heavy shit too. Yeah, it can hold it, because I guess love is infinite, really. There's no capacity to its bounds.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
In our purest form, we are love.
Yeah. Speaking of love and the creation of life, and we've talked about Mother Nature, you speak a lot about feminine energy. And you also speak about how a lot of women have become disconnected from their feminine energy. What is feminine energy, and why are we disconnected from it?
Feminine energy isn't necessarily that of a woman. There's feminine and masculine in everyone and everything. There's feminine energy, masculine energy. You could also be neutral. But feminine is very flowing. It's the receiving. It's non-directional. The masculine is goal-oriented, boundaries, directional, focused. Also can be like singularly focused on one thing. Yeah, like a monovision. Whereas the feminine can be focused on many things, very flowing. And oftentimes I think we also don't realize that there's masculine and feminine energy in objects and places and activities. And so you can take shopping. We might think that shopping is inherently feminine, but you could also go shopping to find a specific outfit for a specific event. Right. You're goal-oriented, you're focused, you're going in for a reason. And so that's more masculine. The shopping just goes shopping to shop. Or the feminine goes shopping to shop. It's like no goal. Also cities can be masculine or feminine. So New York is very masculine, very go, very specific and oriented. And a place like Bali would be more feminine, more connected to earth. Mother Earth is more of a feminine, like nurturing, and more pleasure. So, yeah, what was your original question? What is feminine energy? And
well, I guess that was a really good example, and I appreciate like that polarity. That was a really cool realization for me too, is like, just because you're a man doesn't mean it's all masculine energy. You're probably more times than not going to skew towards the masculine, but you have this feminine archetype and potential within you too that needs nurturing if you want to tap more into your creativity and your softness, etc. Yes. But so that was a good explanation of what it is. And the second part of the question was, why are so many women disconnected from the feminine energy?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just programming. I think it's programming from our parents, from the school system, from dogmatic religion, and from the media. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of programming of fear that closes us. And so we don't have this actually healthy masculine energy. The masculine can create this safety. And because we have been programmed with so much fear, we close and we need to protect ourselves. And oftentimes, if we don't feel safe within ourselves or our emotions, we also like to distract and hyper focus, tap into our masculine energy and focus on our career, or focus on some kind of goal to keep our mind busy, so that we don't feel, because we haven't really been taught how to feel our emotions. We were never taught how to map our mind. We were never taught how to feel and alchemize our emotions. They become very uncomfortable, and so we distract and close. I think there's also a big part of, there's a pendulum swing. I think women were repressed for, I don't know, if centuries.
A long ass time.
A long time.
A long ass time.
And so the pendulum swung. We took our rights back, and I think we just went a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Where we're like, we're a strong, independent woman. Don't need no man. Don't need anything. And we were so focused on being equals that we lost touch of our natural gifts.
Yeah.
And the media has done a wonderful job of glamorizing strong, independent women, and very, very, not just emotionally in tune, which that can be masculine, but weak men.
Yeah.
I think they've really actually glamorized that. Yeah. What was a really good example was the last, I believe, Avengers movie. Did you see it?
I don't think so.
Avengers is the one with Hulk.
Yeah,
and
no,
Thor,
I know the movie. I don't know if I've seen the last one though.
Yeah, like they take Hulk's power away, and he never actually turned into like the angry, like strong Hulk. He actually becomes shy and reserved and doesn't step up to the plate. And then they make Thor like gain a bunch of body fat and drink alcohol, and he's like really emotional and weak. They like make basically all of the male characters weak, and then all of the female characters, they keep their pretty faces, but they give them a very strong masculine look. They cut their hair. They're not wearing like the skirt superhero. They're wearing pants superhero clothes. And the women are the ones that are strong, put together, save the day.
Wow.
And I remember watching that movie, and it's really hard to now watch regular traditional media, whether it's listening to music or watching movies, without seeing all of the agenda.
Oh, so much propaganda in there. Right? So much programming.
So I think a lot of it was programming and conditioning from the media, but I also, because we also have so many broken families, a lot of single mothers have had to take the role of the mother and the father. And so we also learn from our parents masculine and feminine energy without consciously understanding it. We just, we imitate our parents. So I think for me, I was in my masculine the majority of my life. And it was just from modeling my mother, who was a single mother and also very career driven and oriented, and not in touch with her feminine essence. She also she experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of hardship, and I believe she closed in many ways. And so, yeah, you just think what you see is normal.
Yeah. You're so right with the pendulum swings. I wrote something 5 days ago, and I think it's pretty on point for what you just said. Modern feminism has unknowingly become a handmaiden to the very patriarchy that it aims to oppose. Cloaked in the language of empowerment, the capitalist machine has sold women a polished turd. That freedom means competing with men, chasing careers, and never answering to a man unless, of course, it's your corporate boss, and avoiding the burden of motherhood to preserve their bodies and independence. The irony is that in rejecting traditional roles, many have simply adopted new change with sexier language and a 401k.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it definitely pissed a few people off, which it will, because when you poke the bear, so to speak, because I think you're dead on. I think there's no, I don't know, I'm not like a trad wife absolutist by any means. Like I think the women's empowerment movement was absolutely critical and necessary, because you're right, there was just a mass oppression for basically forever, and an abuse of power on the side of the shadow masculine. But yeah, then the pendulum swings too far back, and it's like exactly that message that you said. We don't need no man, and we're just as good. It's like,
if not better.
But the battle of the sexes is a war that nobody should want to win.
Yeah, it honestly, that reminds me of like Taylor Swift. Like all of her albums are, like screw boys,
yeah, exactly.
and my sister's a sign language interpreter, and she never thought anything of Taylor Swift. And then she went and interpreted a concert. She had to memorize all the songs, and then she goes and she's performing it, and she was like it was wild to see the division of men and women, and it's little girls that are even saying,
right.
we don't need boys, screw boys.
Yeah.
And it's really not setting us up for success as a culture, as a society. And the exciting thing is I think the pendulum is coming back to the center. Individuals like myself and all of the people that I've learned from have been sharing the knowledge and the wisdom. And I think a lot of people are waking up to it because they'll read these messages. And that's something I've been doing with my recent content, is more so speaking on the pain points. And because that's what woke me up. That's what allowed me to realize I was suffering and I didn't want to suffer anymore, was somebody mirroring me and mirroring my pain and allowing me to see, oh, this is something that I have the ability to shift. And I think the reason people get so defensive or upset is because they're identified with the thing that you're speaking on. So if their identity is that I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man, and then you're like, hey, that's not actually you, or that's distorted, or that's not the truth. That's really tapping on something that's uncomfortable for them. Their sense of self is derived from that thing. You're always going to get individuals that are triggered by the truth.
So true. Yeah, because that again is this, it's what we were talking about a little bit ago, which is the self-identification with thoughts. Like if I believe my thoughts are me and you have different thoughts to me, then you're fundamentally disagreeing with what I am and who I am. But if I don't necessarily believe that my thoughts are me, and I can have opinions and stuff, but I see that like when you disagree with my thoughts, you're not attacking me as a person. You just see the world differently. And it's okay, actually. It's probably healthy. There's a reason that we should have, dissenting opinions and conversations. It reminds me of like an analogy of a burr trapped in the woods. If a burr got its leg stuck in a trap and you wanted to help it, but because it's wounded, if you went anywhere close to that thing, it would just like swipe at you and try and get you. And you're like, yo, dude, I'm here to help you. And it's like, get the fuck away, I'll kill you. It's like, okay, well, I hope you get your leg out on your own one day. There's nothing I could do. It's just tricky. And social media is a weird place for that, because obviously there's nuance, and no one's ever 100% right. And stuff slips through the cracks. And it's just an interesting way to try and communicate, but it's how we do it now,
Yeah, there's a really cool concept in Buddhism. I hope I don't butcher it, but there's right action, right thought, right speech, etc. And it's not right versus wrong. It's just, does it serve you?
Yeah.
That's what right is. It's all relative to the individual. And so right speech, an example of that is it triggering? And if it's triggering to a lot of individuals, then you're not using right speech. And so I don't think you can always win. I think some individuals will be so deeply identified with this thing that they'll be triggered no matter what. Yeah. But if you find that there's an alarming amount of people triggered by your words, a good reflection would be, how can I create this message so that it's less triggering and more inviting and allows people to be curious?
Yeah.
So that's something I'm really playing with right now with my messaging, because it is a really challenging topic. And sometimes I will choose to write a triggering hook.
Yeah, you choose violence, right? I woke up and chose violence.
So like my triggering hook will be, I think I did one that was 4 red flags you're in your immature feminine era, which is, it's fun, it's playful, but it can definitely be triggering because I'm telling women that they're immature, essentially. But in the caption, I make sure to like really soothe the ego and remind them, I'm pointing these things out because that's what woke me up. I'm only pointing at your pain or your triggers because I want to help you. And there is another way, and you're not stuck in this.
Yeah, that's really smart. And yeah, I feel that tension too, because sometimes you get suckered into playing the game of the algorithm, right? You want people to see your message, and you kind of know that you've got to play the game. And if you try to like appropriate all of the nuance to appease everyone, your message reaches no one. So you've got to play the right dose of like fuck around and find out kind of energy without like just being a dick.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But you know, to the level, like, because you understand the level of chess you're trying to play, because you understand this idea that where you are triggered is where your therapy is, essentially. Like, I'm sure if you saw something that like really triggered you, you could, again, still fundamentally disagree with it, but I can tell you have the level of awareness to go like, well, why is this causing such a strong reaction in me? And is there an ounce of truth to this that is like poking a sensitive spot? And at least that level of investigation is healthy, as opposed to the person that's just blindly triggered and then chooses to respond with violence, or, you know, do the character assassination thing and, you know, attack somebody's hairline or body or whatever else, instead of just being like, maybe I'm so wound up about this because there's probably a speck of truth in it.
Yeah. Do they do their hairline? Because for me, they do my tattoos.
Yeah. So it's become, and I've noticed this, it's actually probably a triggering post that I was playing with, but I didn't post it because it was like, there's a trend I'm seeing now where women are going after the most sensitive thing for men, and it's the hairline. Wow. And I see a lot of mean girl like pylons in the comments of creators saying like, hairline receding, opinion rejected. Like, how are you going to have an opinion with that hairline, bro?
Wow.
Because they know it's a very, very sensitive spot.
Yeah.
But let's just flip that on its head for a minute. If a female creator was coming and men were piling on and saying like, you're fat, opinion rejected, or you're, you know, you've got too many wrinkles.
Game over.
It would be terrible, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, we gotta, you know, is it a bit of a double standard sometimes? And I get it. That's the pendulum swinging too, because women would rightly say, well, you've been able to basically say what you want forever, and now we're getting our turn. I'm like, touche. But if you're gonna fuck around, you're also gonna find out. So it's just tricky. I just don't like, unfortunately, that it seems that culturally it's very acceptable right now to just like say really mean shit to people.
Yeah,
like,
I think
really mean things.
The solution though is love.
It always is.
That's how you heal it, is love. Is. Yeah, the people that saying mean things to me online, and right now it's, I mean, really in my whole life, it's never been a thing. I think I've been, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but maybe fortunate to not have to deal with too much of that. But even in my most recent post, people have become triggered because they felt like I was calling them immature or unhealed or what have you. And they'll start poking at my tattoos or my hair, my eyebrows or something along those lines. And I just say, sending you love. Yeah. Sending you so much love. And there's usually not a response to that.
No, because you just shut it down, right? Like, what can you say to that?
And I always, I'll feel almost the trigger within me. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's also just an important thing for people to know, that a trigger is never caused by somebody else. They're always just mirroring you. A trigger is just an unhealed part of yourself. So anytime that I do find a trigger within myself, I either think, oh, there's something that I need to heal. It could be a deep wound, or it could just be a program. It could be just an awareness shift, just more knowledge or loving kindness or understanding.
I love that thread you're on. I'm pulling up one of my favorite Marcus Aurelius quotes right now. Great. Yeah, he says, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. And of course, there's a line where physical violence is the exception to the rule here. But what you're saying is, like, when somebody says, like, you made me feel a certain way, that person didn't actually, they could have said something really mean and they could have done something really rude, but they didn't actually make you feel a certain way. You chose to interpret, and usually what it is something like, she shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that. They're shutting all over reality. When the truth of the matter is, if they did it, they should have done it, because that's exactly what they did. You're arguing with reality. You're going to lose that game every single time.
Wow.
It might not be nice. And yeah, you know, a more evolved person probably wouldn't do those things. But to say, like, somebody shouldn't have done something that they did is just a torturous trap. They
You're creating your own suffering. If you're resisting the present moment, your experience, you will create your own suffering. Every time.
It's tough. I feel like people are somewhat, like, they're just stuck in that. They're almost addicted to it too, you know, because there's this idea that your nervous system would almost rather choose a comfortable hell.
Familiar.
Yeah, that you know, familiar hell than an uncertain, you know, future. Like, but that uncertain future could also be blissful and awesome and romantic and happy. But because it's uncertain, and the brain is like, oh, I don't like that. We don't know. Let's stay here in the shit.
Yeah, I've learned to really bypass that.
Good.
Yeah, I think, going back to bodybuilding, that was a big part of it. Or just weight training, anything athletic, anything that requires discipline and fortitude will allow you to start bypassing the fear or the discomfort, the voice in your head that says, okay, you can stop now. And you have to be like, no, I have things that are more important to me. And it might start with more of a shallow, egotistical drive. You might be operating out of fear at first. I think I did. That's actually how I began really bodybuilding. It wasn't just the story that I told you. That was what started competing, professional bodybuilding for me. But what really drove me to want to change my physical body and shape it was reading my ex's journal.
Ooh.
So this was that first toxic relationship that I shared with you. And it started becoming very, very emotionally abusive. And then it became even physically abusive. And there was this, for lack of better terms, the wounded, weak feminine that couldn't leave. I didn't have the healthy masculine energy, the discipline to be like, no, I'm going to bypass these emotions or these thoughts, and I'm going to focus and do the thing that I need to do. I didn't have boundaries. Healthy masculine is boundaries as well. So I didn't have any of that healthy masculine energy developed. And so I was just stuck in this weak, feminine, wounded space. And I was looking for a reason to leave. And for whatever reason, in my mind at the time, the toxicity or the negativity wasn't enough. And so I was looking for something more. I was hoping he was cheating on me.
Yeah.
So I would start reading through his journal, and I didn't find anything along those lines. But what I did find was a pros and cons list of reasons to be with me. And the cons list was actually hilarious. It was like bad eyesight, like potential children vision problems.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember reading it and being like, what the fuck? It wasn't even things that I was insecure about until I got to doesn't have a good body.
Wow.
And up until that point, I did the typical girl thing where you're in the changing room or you're at home and you're putting on clothes and you're like, I'm fat. And all your girlfriends are like, no, you're not. You look so good. And so I had that experience growing up, and I wasn't obese. There was a very small time when I was, but at this point I wasn't really much overweight. I just had not the same proportions that society views as beauty. And so I thought in my mind that I literally just thought it was in my head. I was like, all my girlfriends tell me I look good. And none of my partners had ever said anything negative. And so I just thought I had body dysmorphia. And so when I read that journal entry, I was like, oh, not only does somebody also think that about me, but they use it as a reason to not want to be with me. And that lit my fire. And so the beginning of changing my body and getting into all of the healthy stuff, it was rooted in fear. It was, if I change my body, then I'll be enough.
Yeah.
I never wanted that to be a reason for someone to not want to date me again.
Yeah.
So that was my primary driver way back then. And so it was rooted in something unhealthy, so to speak, but at least I took the right path.
That's right. You alchemized it at some point. You recognized what got you started is not going to be what keeps you going.
Yeah, that's what it is.
There's a motivational theory about away from versus towards motivation.
Ooh, I'd love to hear it.
Away from motivation is when you use something painful to spur you into action. So that I can imagine was extremely painful. And the interesting thing about pain as a motivator, fear as a motivator, that feeling of like, I'm never going to have anybody say that about me again, is it is really galvanizing. It's really powerful and it's really fast, and it seems to be more potent. The problem is if you use that forever, it's toxic. It'll burn you out.
Or it will never be enough. You lose the 10 pounds or the 20 pounds and then you find something else to fixate on.
That's right.
Oh, well, if I get a bigger butt, then I'll be confident. Then I'll be happy. And then you do that and you're like, well, I don't really like my shoulders.
Yeah.
Or you end up like Michael Jackson, you get 37 nose surgeries.
So at a certain point, you need to recognize, okay, that got me going, which is fine. I needed to get away from this painful situation. Do I have the awareness to say like, oh, that's not the most like eco-friendly, sustainable fuel, because hopefully I want to be doing what's healthy for me forever, not just when I'm in immense pain, or I never get out of pain because I just switch the lens of my, you know, insecurities. Like you said, well, I fixed my bum and now it's my shoulders, and like, good luck with that game. You're never going to win. So I have to switch to something that's a little bit more nourishing, a little bit more, that instead of moving away from the painful thing is moving towards the thing that is inspiring, lovemaking for you, a bit more aligned, for want of a better term.
Love
again.
Yeah, operating out of fear, operating out of love. And the best way to operate out of love is to actually have a value system. So you can eat food to lose weight, or you can go to the gym in order to not get fat. You're operating out of fear, right? But if you are choosing to move your body because it feels good, because you know it raises your vibration, you alchemize energy, you get strong, it's so good for you in every way. And it's okay if there's like a little bit of fear lingering from maybe the past way that you operated, but if you can catch it and reframe and be like, oh wait, it's not that I have to go to the gym so that I don't get fat. I want to go to the gym because I love myself. And I want to honor my body and my values. And the same thing with food. You can choose to not eat seed oils because you're scared, because you've seen all of the fear mongering, or you can simply see it for what it is and realize, oh, this is a very low vibrational substance that doesn't have any powerful or loving intention in my body, just the way that alcohol doesn't. And so I'm going to choose not to eat that food, not because of fear, but because I want to honor my body. And when you can really have an honor of value system, it doesn't require as much discipline, doesn't require as much motivation. You want to do the thing. You want to do it, And you would think that fear would be more of a powerful driver, but if you can really tap into the love and the love for yourself and your future desires, it's actually way more powerful and it's sustainable.
Sustainable as all heck, because a labor of love. It's a labor of love. A labor of love can endure because it's fueled on an unlimited amount of fuel. I think that's really good what you just said, because it's not like it's effortless, because things, you know, in our culture that is sick, and the convenience factor of food means that basically you do have to exert more effort to go the extra mile to get the food at the seed oil-free restaurant, for example. But it's a willingful effort that you're happy to take, because
it's empowering.
And you're like you said, it just doesn't align with my values. Like, I don't really see this as a food, and I value this, and I'm going to do this instead, which is so much, it just puts you in so much more flow than like white knuckling life and being like, I can't eat ice cream and pizza. Sucks. I'm so sad. This is terrible. But I'm at least going to be shredded by the end of this. Hopefully. Oh my God.
And you're resenting everyone else the whole time. Yeah. That's so funny.
That's I wanted to, this will be quite a shift of gears, but I've had this one burning for a while, and I need to ask you this, because when we spoke about being playful on social media and triggering people's golden eggs, if you will, coffee's one of them, and you had a reel titled why moody bitches shouldn't drink coffee. Why shouldn't moody bitches drink coffee?
Oh my God, that's so good. That's an older post.
I know, I did my research.
So to me, first of all, what is irritability? What is agitation? What is frustration? They're all forms of judgment. They're all forms of resisting the present moment or experience, or even a person. And so that was probably one of the hardest realizations I ever made, but also one of the most empowering and just powerful shifts of my entire experience and healing process, was realizing that every time that I'm frustrated with something or someone, I'm actually judging them. I have an expectation of how things should be, and then that expectation is not met, and so I'm looking down on them or their behavior or the experience. And so being able to recognize when I'm actually operating out of fear, my ego, and judging, like, oh, that's creating my own suffering. It always goes back to, does it serve me? Is it true? Maybe they lack common sense, or maybe there's some validity to this perception, but does it serve me? And then being able to release it, being able to let go of that irritability, the agitation, the frustration, the judgment. Part of it's just regulating the nervous system. part of it is when you have a more relaxed body, you have the ability to pause and to be self-aware and actually recognize and go through this mind mapping to be able to free yourself from the suffering. But if you're go, you're sped up, you're always in the future or what's next. And stimulants will do that. Adderall will do that. Vyvanse and nicotine and coffee. And small amounts of anything can be okay, but we have to realize the reality of what it's doing to us.
Yeah.
And so if these substances are speeding us up, taking us away from the present moment, we don't actually have the ability to see what's happening, why we're suffering, and then heal it with love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you nailed it. I think I just get this image of my head of like the Buddha rocking around a few thousand years ago, just chugging Starbucks and like going on these unhinged rants. And it's like, it's obviously not that, right? Almost nobody needs like speeding up. And you know, this is the curse of being a modern human in so many ways, because like I love my little coffee ritual, and I'm like got my little productivity list I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna crush all this, and the caffeine gets me going, and you know, might even throw a Zinachino in there at some point. And I'm like, but if it definitely runs counterintuitive to the Buddha nature, the stillness, the calm. There's like the Buddha and the beast, and that's all feeding the beast, like this rah monster that, you know, we've got to do the rah sometimes. We do, like the human doings are got to go out and make the money and stuff like that. But we need to hopefully bring more of that peaceful awareness to it. And yeah, relying on stimulants and just getting your nervous system all jacked up is probably not what anybody needs in this world where we're already as jacked up as we probably need to get.
Yeah. What's cool is that caffeine tolerance doesn't take very long to reset.
Yeah.
I believe it's like 7 days, give or take. And there's other factors that play into that. But for most people, it's about a week.
Yeah.
I think there's a very strong attachment to coffee for most individuals. And I don't think we have to necessarily completely get rid of it, but creating healthy, loving boundaries around what's not serving us. And with caffeine, you can really ask yourself for anything, whether it's food or a specific substance or even just something as simple as coffee. Why am I craving it? What am I seeking from it? What are the state or the emotions or the experience that I'm seeking from this thing?
That's right.
And so for me with coffee, part of it is the taste. It's like, okay, well, you can get a Swiss water decaf or you can have less. You can have half a cup and savor that cup. But I also love the focus, the dopamine. And so I can also ask myself, well, where are other healthy ways or modalities that I can boost my dopamine? So we have a cold plunge at home.
Yeah.
Before I had a cold plunge, I would do cold showers. They sucked, but they also provided me the mental fortitude, and they provided me the dopamine and the focus. So I would start my day, I would take a hot shower, and then I would turn into the cold, and then I would just stay there as long as I could. And breathwork, upregulation breathwork specifically can really, there's also forms of the holotropic breathwork, but I will do upregulation breathwork actually in between every single client call. So I do 10 deep breaths. I do an in 3, out 1. So and then it's a quick, sharp exhale, breathe in for 10, and then I'll exhale and I'll hold at the bottom for as long as I can. Usually it's about 30 seconds to a minute. And then I'll inhale and hold for as long as I can. And then, and I'll press start. Hi, how are you today?
Yeah.
And it grounds me, and it also gives me that focus, that energy that I'm desiring to be able to do my job.
That's cool. I think, this learning to play the instrument of your nervous system is fascinating, because you specifically use the language of upregulation breath work, because a lot of times when we talk about breath work, we're talking about down regulation. We're talking about the parasympathetic, and you're shortening and sharpening the exhale. So you're ramping up in a very healthy way to kind of lock in for the focus. And then the other branch of the nervous system, the parasympathetic, you can play with these long, slow exhales, or the or whatever else it is. Like there's so many ways. It's the coolest instrument in the world, this body and nervous system that we have, and it's a shame that nobody learns to play it. You know, we could make some magical music with this thing.
It's available to you at all times.
All times.
Like, yes, going for a run. For a lot of people, like, I just love running. I'm like, well, cool. Can you do that 20 times a day? Because you're probably experiencing some kind of negative thought, emotion, intrusive thought, or something. And right now, your coping mechanism is sugar or scrolling on your phone or hitting your vape, and that's not serving you. No. So maybe you should open up to the idea that you could be someone who meditates or someone who does breath work, because it's right there. It's available to you at all times. I do breath work in my car. Yes. I do breath work in between every single client, and it takes 2 minutes. Yeah. And the shift that can happen in 2 minutes is wild.
Oh, it's the difference of a whole different reality, literally. Even one breath, man. Mm-hmm. Just one breath is the difference between reaction and responsiveness. It's the difference between chaos and order. It's magic. Mm-hmm. Gina, this has been an awesome amount of fun. It's been a true pleasure. Tell people a little bit about where they can go to keep up with you and any of your offerings or whatever comes to mind.
Right now, my main platform is Instagram. So you can do @TheRealGinaMarie with 2 E's. I'm also on Spotify. I'm currently rebranding. It was Blunt Talks with Gina. Okay. But that doesn't align with me anymore. There you go. And so we're rebranding to Co-Create Her. That's my company's name. Mm-hmm. So you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Spotify podcast, on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. There's only one of me. There's only one Gina Scafoglio.
There you go. So if the real one.
The real one, yes. If you're able to see my last name on this podcast, you can search me and you'll find me on every platform. Amazing. Yeah, it's been so lovely to be here.
Thank you for coming out. I look forward to doing it again one day. Stay radical. And you lot, try some breathing, okay? Take a few breaths after you wrap up this one before you go on to the next thing. And we'll see you next week. Big love. Peace. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.